The molecule shown in the corner here is lactate. Lactate levels can be measured in the bloodstream. As we progress from a state of rest into a state of moderate exercise, our blood lactate levels remain steady. This is often known as the steady state. However, as we progress into intense exercise, our blood lactate levels rapidly increase, and this is known as the lactate inflection point, the point on the graph when the blood lactate levels increase. At the same point of transition into intense exercise and the increase in blood lactate levels, we also experience fatigue and a decline in performance. Let's take a look at the production of lactate. To do so, we need to consider the respiratory pathways for the production of ATP. Within muscle cells, glucose, the 6-carbon carbohydrate sugar, is broken down in the cytoplasm in a process called glycolysis to the molecule pyruvate, and in so doing, a small amount of ATP is generated. To increase the efficiency of ATP production, the pyruvate is then taken to the mitochondria, and with oxygen, this breakdown then produces considerably more ATP. Carbon dioxide is produced as waste. The pyruvate breakdown is, however, limited by the maximum amount of oxygen that can be delivered to the mitochondria of our muscle cells. And when this limit is reached, the accumulation which then occurs of pyruvate can bring about the inhibition of glycolysis. And so, as an alternative pathway, the extra pyruvate is then channeled into being lactic acid, which then forms lactate by dissociation, and the lactate is pumped into the blood. Any lactate produced during moderate exercise or indeed rest remains constant in the bloodstream because of what is called the lactate shuffle. So this is the part on our graph where the lactate levels are constant, even though we are either at rest or doing moderate exercise. And the reason the blood lactate remains constant is because any lactate added to the blood is balanced by its removal either to the liver, where it's actually turned back into glucose and then stored as glycogen, or in the heart, the lactate can be used directly into the pathways for the generation of pyruvate, and so used as an energy source for heart muscle. In so doing, lactate added is balanced by lactate being removed, and this is called the lactate shuffle. As we move to intense exercise, the levels of lactate in the blood increase. Lactate production is greater than lactate clearance due to the lactate shuffle, and so our lactate levels are increasing. This creates an unsteady state of lactate accumulation, which is a combination of aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and results in increasing levels of fatigue and performance levels decline. Let's review that the lactate shuffle maintains the constant level during rest or moderate exercise, in which maintaining glycolysis even when oxygen is lacking in the muscle cells. Lactate inflection correlates when production of lactate exceeds the use of lactate. So lactate production due to reaching the oxygen limits is greater than its use in either the liver or the heart, and so blood lactate levels increase, LIP. It should be noted that even though the blood lactate levels rise, lactate itself does not cause anaerobic fatigue. In other words, the inflection point, which is here at this intensity and here at this concentration of blood lactate, simply correlates with fatigue, but it is not causation. It doesn't cause the fatigue. The actual cause of the fatigue is due to what is called exercise acidosis. With the intense levels of exercise, ATP is being broken down into ADP in a process called a hydrolysis. This hydrolysis is accompanied by the breakdown of water, and so ATP is broken down into ADP and the phosphate, and is accompanied by a build-up of protons which come from water. And of course, this increase in protons or hydrogen ions leads to acid conditions, the acidosis that causes the fatigue and the decline of performance in the muscle cells.